Just stay on beat. That's the main thing. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktabinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So we'll be reading from page 437 today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 13th day of August 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we're in chapter 10, entitled The Opulence of the Absolute, text number 14. Okay. Sarvam etad ritam manye yan mam vadasi keshava nahi te bhagavan vyaktim vidur deva nadanavaha. Okay, before we begin, I'm going to point out something that most of you know exists, but some of you may not, and that there is a Sanskrit pronunciation guide at the back of this book. In fact, all of the major books have this Sanskrit pronunciation guide, and this will tell you how all of the letters and combinations of letters are meant to be sounded. It begins on page 732. So those who have your own Bhagavad Gita and you want to learn better how to pronounce these wonderful verses, it's really extraordinary poetry. Sanskrit is, the very word Sanskrit means perfectly composed. And Bhagavad Gita is mostly pretty simple Sanskrit, but when you get into books like the Bhagavad Gita and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which also has many Sanskrit verses, you'll see some of the beauty of the composition. So if you're interested in perfecting your pronunciation, you can refer to that Sanskrit pronunciation guide. Okay. So, do we do Om Namo Bhagavad Gita? I don't think we did that. Okay.
We're going over the...
Yeah. Sarvametad vritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur devan danavaha. Sarvametad vritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur devan danavaha. Sarvametad vritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur devan danavaha. Sarvametad vritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur devan danavaha. Anyone else over here? Go ahead. Sarvametan vritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur devan danavaha. Sarvametad vritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur devan danavaha. Where's Chad? I guess he's working somewhere else. Ladies? Sarvametad vritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava bhagavan nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur devan danavaha. Sarvametad vritam manye yanmam vadasi keshava nahite bhagavan vyaktim vidur devan danavaha. Okay. So just one note on the last word. You notice that there's an H with a dot under it, the last letter, right? So you only pronounce those at the end of, here you have 2 line verses. So at the end of the first line or the end of the second line, if there happens to be one in the middle, then it's not kicked like that. It's just pronounced like a little bit with a H in your throat, okay? And also, notice the long A, the little dash over the A before the H with the dot under it. That means it's not Danabaha, it's Danabaha. Otherwise, you're not sounding that A, you see? Danabaha as opposed to Danabaha. All right, just a little note on that. All right, I'll read the word by word so you can follow along silently. Sarvam, all. Etat, thus. Ritam, truth. Manye, I accept. Yat, which. Mam, unto me. Vadasi, you tell. Keshava, O Krishna. Na, never. He, certainly. Te, your Bhagavan, O personality of Godhead. Vyaktim, revelation. Viduhu, can know. Devaha, the demigods. Na, nor Danavaha, the demons. Translation. Arjuna says to Krishna, O Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the demigods nor the demons, O Lord, can understand your personality. Purport. Arjuna herein confirms that persons of faithless and demonic nature cannot understand Krishna. He is not known even by the demigods, so what to speak of the so-called scholars of this modern world? By the grace of the Supreme Lord, Arjuna has understood that the supreme truth is Krishna and that he is the perfect one. One should therefore follow the path of Arjuna. He received the authority of the Bhagavad Gita. As described in the 4th chapter, the parampara system of disciplic succession for the understanding of the Bhagavad Gita was lost, and therefore Krishna re-established that disciplic succession with Arjuna, because he considered Arjuna his intimate friend and a great devotee. Therefore, as stated in our introduction to the Gita Upanishad, the Bhagavad Gita should be understood in the parampara system. When the parampara system was lost, Arjuna was selected to rejuvenate it. The acceptance by Arjuna of all that Krishna says should be emulated. Then we can understand the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, and then only can we understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So, this is a very important statement by Arjuna. Sarvameta Ritamanya, I accept as truth all that you have spoken to me. And that is indeed our own attitude that is necessary for us to advance in Krishna consciousness, which can give us the highest situation in life. No more birth, old age, disease, and death, and a life of Satchit Ananda, eternity, bliss, and knowledge, which is our birthright. That's who we really are. All of this relative life, birth, old age, disease, and death, this is all artificial, really. It's an alienated environment for the soul. The soul is meant to be in the purely spiritual planet with Krishna. So what's happening here in the Bhagavad Gita as a whole, and in this passage specifically, is that the authority of books such as the Bhagavad Gita, when given and explained by a pure devotee, when transmitted purely, and indeed all the Vedic literatures, the literature that Srila Prabhupada has given us, the Bhagavad Purana, namely the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the writings of the Goswamis, especially what he gave in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the very authoritative, and Ishopanishad, and Nectar of Devotion in the smaller books. So the point is that how do we determine what to accept as evidence for how we should lead our lives? Just like children, they don't know anything, right? I mean, they're just helpless. So they're completely dependent on the parents, mother and father, to protect them and to guide them for their development. And Krishna has created it, and nature is there so that there's a spontaneous love of the mother for the child, the father for the child, so that they want to nourish this child and bring him forth and oversee the good development of the child. So the child doesn't worry, do I really have to, should I really trust this mother here? I don't know. Maybe they're out to get me. There's no such thing, right? It's just without the given fact that the mother loves the child and will protect the child, nourish the child, and bring the child forth. It's built into the genes, it's coming from the super soul. But as we grow and we get older, and we learn that the human life, as I was emphasizing last night, and I'll emphasize next night, is a special opportunity. This is again and again mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, especially in the Bhagavatam, for us to escape this round of birth and death, old age, disease. Birth, old age, disease, and death is how it goes. No matter what form we happen to be in, we can be in some animal form or even a plant, whatever, but there's a point when you come into being and you develop, you see, and you stay for some time, and then eventually time takes over and you're swept away. You don't die. The soul never dies. Whether it's in a tree or it's in a dog or it's in a human being or in a god, the soul is eternal. This is the basic message of the second chapter. And if we accept that truth, it should change, or at least stimulate an inquiry into how we can transform our lives to take that into account. Because just try to, just as a thought experiment. A person is born, if they're fortunate, at least materially, born in America, and they're really born, fortunately in America, a middle class, upper class family, so that, the child can grow up and get a good education and get a good job and be successful, you see. But how successful is that ultimately? The soul is eternal, the body is temporary. So no matter what you can gain in terms of riches, fame, whatever other accolades, Olympic champions, whatever may be, right? That's all simply adhering to your body. You are famous, that name that was given to you when you were a child, because it's adhered to the body. But you're not the body. Eventually, you die, and along with that death, everything is taken away. Krishna says in this chapter, I think, Mrityu sarvaharashchaham. A very profound statement. That God appears in different ways to different people according to their ability to perceive. So for instance, the gross atheist, he doesn't believe that there's a God. He thinks everyone who believes in God is foolish, and like that. That's when many of you have heard this before. I was trained as an atheist, as a child, as a communist, which is atheism is a big thing. You know the motto they have? That religion is the opium of the people, or opiate? I think it's opium of the people. Opiate? You sure? All right, we'll check it. But it's the same idea. In other words, it's something that's given to bewilder you, to control you, to give you false hope. There's no God out there. I don't see him. There's no scientific way you can prove he exists to me. And so that's a very depressing kind of worldview when you think about it, when you look at it from the point of view of Krishna consciousness. So how could I come to this point? In other words, I may not be advanced devotee, but I believe in God. I definitely believe in God. Believe that there's Krishna. Not just God, but gods. There's all kinds of beings that we can't see who are in control. There's a water god, there's an air god, there's an earth god. They all have names, right? Varuna, Vayu, Bhumi, In fact, we find it's all part of Krishna's vast government, kind of a bureaucracy, if you will. Krishna is what would we do if we were God? Would we have to worry, oh boy, I gotta punish that person, I have to do that creation now, what's happening over there? No, we would delegate it all, right? So what would we do? Play all day? That's what Leela is. What Leela is play, something you want to do for your own pleasure. Now when we do that and play, we just get more entangled in the material world. We get material desires that ultimately bring us back to another body for suffering. Krishna has certified in the 8th chapter that this world is dukkha alayam ashashvatam. which means it's an abode of suffering and it's temporary. Even you say, okay, I know it's difficult, but at least I have a situation. Yeah, but you're not going to have it forever. You'll have it. That's also temporary. That's part of the misery. There's no permanence. We forget that. We have the solution. I got it made now. I got the job. I got the position. I got the whatever it may be. You have your own list. Certainly a big bank account. That's a big part. But how long can it last? Even in our own lifetimes, you can see there's an up and down. Oh, why didn't I invest in that stock instead of that stock? My friend invested, he did well. It's full of regret and all these kinds of things. This is material life, up and down. So where is that source of knowledge and where is that path, if you will, of activity, which can take us out of this world, the relative world, the world of birth, death, old age, and disease, of threefold miseries? This is also important to understand. Krishna says in 13th chapter, there's a whole list of things that we should know in order to, have a good foundation for spiritual life. And one of them is this famous Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, Dukkha, Doshano, Darshanam. To always be aware of, Prabhupada calls them evils. And some devotees say, that has to be fixed. But if you look up evil doesn't just mean someone who's out to hurt others. Something that's one kind of evil. But another kind of evil is that which causes you pain, which is the source of suffering and discomfort. Look it up. So, why is it important to be aware of those things? Because it will prevent us from being complacent and trying to adjust to this material life as the all in all. The human life has a special mission. I like to quote this verse. Forgive me if you heard before. Actually, these verses are ever fresh. From the Bhagavatam. Labdva sudurlamamidam bahusambhavante manushyam artadamanityam apiya dhira turnam yateta napateta namrityavad nikshe saya vishaya kalasarva taksyat. Now, Sanskrit is such a wonderful language. It's all very compact. There's no wasted words, So the ideas are very profound. So Krishna speaks this verse, I believe, in the 11th canto. So, Labdva sudurlamam, you have attained, oh human being, you have attained this very rare human form now. That's nothing very profound. Look at all the millions and millions of other species of life that can't understand the Bhagavad Gita. There's no point in me going to them and try to tell them how to pronounce the word. Yeah. So, but they're also as much spirit souls as we are. And they're coming up, the different species. You see, until finally they come to the human form. Everybody actually comes there. But if we waste it, if we perform vicious activities with no Krishna consciousness, then we will lose the human form and go back down. And it'll be about. So this verse is saying, don't waste the chance. You've gotten the human form after many, many millions of years of evolution. And what's the great value? Artadam. That in this form, we can attain the really great value of existence. Sometimes it's sva-arta, the goal of the soul, not just the goal of the mind or the body like that, you see. So artadam, but don't waste time. Anityam, it's not an eternal form. It's all very temporary. It's a flash. We live mostly under 100 years, under 80 years. One of our members, Kamala Sundari, just passed. I don't know if you know her. But we went to visit her. She's elder. But she was surrounded by devotees chanting, her family. We went to see her yesterday. We had a nice little kirtan in her room. She was chanting on the bed, It was very touching, But the point is that we all come to that point, that stage at one point. So this verse is saying, Manusham artadam anityam apiya dhira. So one has to be thoughtful. Consider really what's important in life. And having considered it, now you should come to the conclusion, and turnam yateta, without wasting any time, strive. Strive for what? As long as you still have a body, and you're living and you're healthy enough. Napateta namityavat nikshayasaya. Now this word shreyas, it's worth learning these two words. So along with shreyas, there's prayas. And we're all familiar certainly with prayas. Prayas is that which is immediately pleasurable, or pleasurable over a certain finite amount of material time. Okay, I'll work hard, get this skill, and get this job, have money, I'll enjoy. That's still all prayas, you see. But in Shreyas, it's to your eternal benefit, the benefit of the soul. And the basic benefit of the soul that you want to strive for is not to take birth again, you see. But the only way to do that is to purify your consciousness of all the latent, unfulfilled material desires and all the karmic record that you have. We're being forced to incarnate again and again because of this. But Krishna consciousness is the purifying factor. In fact, in the last verse, we had Arjuna. He was, after glorifying Krishna. By the way, the verses 8 to 11, for those who have their own book or want to do their own study, is the essence of the Gita. Those are the 4 main verses of the Gita, Bhagavad Gita. So one of the phrases, notice Param Brahma Param Brahma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. You see that phrase? That means you are the most pure and the greatest purifier. Just like the sun. Probably would always give the example of the sun. So the sun is shining, it's so hot and everywhere. So if there's some impurity in the grass, some dog passes, but the bright sun shines on it for a few days, then it sanitizes it. It's very purifying. So Krishna is the supreme purifier, meaning that if we chant this name, and this is the mystical power of the holy name, is that Krishna is present in his name, just as we are to a certain degree, right, in a material sense. If you meet your friend and you have a third friend, and you remember that person, and but you call the name, immediately the form comes in and you get some ideas what they did. Oh, now I know. Yeah, I remember him or her. So the name is so important, and in Krishna's case, he's empowered his name. He's invested it with all these shaktis. Krishna, as Lord Chaitanya, speaking in the role of a conditioned soul in the 2nd verse of the Shikshastika, he says that. Nam nam akadi bahodani dasarva shaktis tatrarpitani yamitak smadane nakala etadrishita vakripa bhagavan mamapi durdayavamidrisha mahajani nanuraga. This is Krishna in the form of Lord Chaitanya saying, I'm so unfortunate. He's acting as a conditioned soul who's wanting to chant Hare Krishna. But so he says, I made a little poem out of it. Krishna, Govinda, and Keshava too, your names have no end, and in each of them you have invested your potencies, leaving none out. Whenever we want, we can chant him without the slightest restriction of time or of place. O Lord, who can fathom your infinite grace? But I am so wretched, devoid of all shame, that I haven't developed a taste for your name. Now, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself. He has, in his mood as Lord Chaitanya, he's not nothing but the taste for the name. But he's showing us how we should pray. We don't have a spontaneous love for the holy name, but we know that we should try to develop that. And so we can pray like this, and the next verses describe how we can attain that taste. But the point is, any contact with Krishna directly, seeing the deities, taking the prasadam, associating with devotees, especially chanting and hearing Hare Krishna or other sacred sounds, is purifying for the soul, meaning that it's negating or liberating us from unwanted desires. Just like when I remember in the early 80s, before many of you were born, there was an epidemic of cocaine, crack cocaine. I was sitting in Miami, so it wasn't so obvious, but in New York we heard it was very prominent, Now, I never took cocaine, but I heard about it, read about it, the effect, it makes you feel very powerful and enlivened and for a little time, But then it can destroy you. We had a fellow come here, he was part of AA. Many of you don't know that up the street there's 2 main churches. They've been there for a long time. And in one of them, at least there's an AA meeting, an Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know, for those who, you're lucky if you don't know what it means. But anyway, so we had a fellow there was one devotee who was sent here, this is a long story, and he was sent by his father to get my association, which I don't know if it helped him, but he had a problem with alcohol. So his father sent him here, and he searched out that place, and he would go up there periodically. He would come here, chant Hare Krishna, he was the devotee. But he met a fellow who was interested, and he came down. And he would sit in my classes, but he had got himself messed up with too much cocaine. He was in his late 30s or something. So he would sit with the lecture, but then he couldn't sit, and he'd get up and he had to walk around in the patio and come down. Poor guy, He never could. He could not be Dhira. This word dhira, which is a calm and collected and receptive, you see, that's a great quality. Right, Molly? So, my point is that this verse goes on. So what should we strive for if we understand the urgency of it? Turnam, don't wait. Don't think, well, I'll think it over tomorrow. Let me consult someone. No, don't wait, because you don't know what will happen tomorrow. So turnam yateda, immediately strive for nikshayasa, the ultimate good, which is what? Which is a clarity of mind, purity of heart, and more awakening of our natural, innate affection and love for God and for Krishna. And in that way, we loosen the bonds, or as it says in the Shastra in many places, cut the knots in the heart that are binding us to this world. Vidya Granti is called, you see. And the most efficient and quick way of doing that is immersion in Krishna consciousness. You can't kill desire, and we don't want to. We want to, I love this word, sublimate. Sublimate it. I know I may be trying to give it a new meaning, but you can see what it means. This make sublime. The desire to enjoy is not inherently sinful. But when it's just directed toward obeying the demands of the senses for flickering enjoyment, then that's sinful, and it binds us more and more to this world, to suffer. But when that desire to enjoy is directed toward Krishna, to give Krishna pleasure. Just like when we chant Hare Krishna and sing and dance a little bit, if you really get into it, I don't think there's anyone who cannot enjoy some kind of pleasure from it, right? If you're hearing the name, you see. Why is it pleasurable? Because it's giving Krishna pleasure. Because it's inherently pleasing, and he's really even more pleased when you take it out, because then you can, intrigue other people to, what's going. And this is in the Bhagavad Gita, I forget the Sanskrit, just by once hearing the holy name, one eliminates so many sinful reactions and so much bondage. That's that purifying. So, back to our verse here. Arjuna is giving us an example. Sarvameta Rita Munye. I accept as truth everything that you say, Krishna. And then he goes on, neither the demigods nor demons, O Lord, can understand your personality. So even being in a very exalted material position doesn't help. In fact, the real prescription or the prerequisite for Krishna consciousness is humility. That's the first element of knowledge in the 13th chapter, which we'll get to in a couple of months probably. It says, amanitvam, adambitvam, ahimsa, chantar arjavam. These are, amanitvam, humility. And adambitvam, freedom from pretense. You see, freedom from pretense. In other words, being honest with ourselves where we're at and our need for guidance and help. Amanitvam, adambitvam, ahimsa, non-violence. We should minimize that as much as possible. That's where heavy karma comes in. Everyone's going shopping, you go and pick up a little milk and get some nice cabbages, and now we got to go get the ground meat, and then for dinner. Nobody thinks that, oh my God, that was the flesh of a living, breathing animal, a poor cow who it was brutally slaughtered. Even if you just think about climate change, you know how beneficial it would be for everyone to become a vegetarian and not have these huge, isn't it? Read about it. It's one of the main things with all the methane coming up and the terrible waste of land. It's not necessary. I've been a vegetarian longer than I've been a devotee. I've been a devotee 51 years. I'm still going. 76, I'm doing fine. Proof. So it's completely unnecessary. And if you're a little understanding, then that'll be something you can give up, and then you'll become more in the mode of goodness, and you'll be more receptive. You'll be, like that. So anyway, Arjuna is accepting is declaring his acceptance of what Krishna is saying, and if we do that, then we can really transform our lives. Anyway, any questions on this particular verse or purport? Arjuna, go on. All right. Oh, we have something. Yeah, take the mic.
Thanks, Tim.
Go ahead, Boo.
It's kind of an experiential question. It's an experiential question. In your 51 years of experience, is this process of accepting accepting this truth, as we just read, is that a process, or do you find that most people that join the order already are in 100% acceptance of the truth?
No, when you first come, generally, I mean, I hadn't read the Bhagavad Gita. I had read part of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. I was kind of philosophically inclined, you know. My brother studied philosophy. I went to the University of Chicago. I was studying Socrates and all those guys, you know. So I was interested. I was really attuned to philosophy. And I first got a Kṛṣṇa book. Now, there's plenty of philosophy in the Kṛṣṇa book, but most of it is lila, is pastimes. And it was just too much for me at first. You know, I didn't understand what that, although, you know, now I love to read the Kṛṣṇa book. But the philosophy of the teaching of Lord Chaitanya really intrigued me. And I wanted to learn more about that, and that's why I went to the temple and was exposed to, you know, everything else, the chanting and the devotees like that. So it's not a question of, I'm sorry, could you reframe the question again?
The process of accepting.
Yeah, what Krishna says. No, that is not. Yeah, that is not an automatic thing. There's usually some doubts, and you accept one thing and not another. You know, and so it's not universally accepted. That's a very advanced platform to immediately accept all the words that are coming in. It's a very auspicious thing if you can do it, because the transformation takes up, you know, very quickly. But certainly as we go through life, you know, material life, you develop a certain theory or understanding of what's true and what isn't. Now it's a faulty basis, but it's what you've got, you know, and you'll be seeing the Bhagavad Gita through that lens. When you start, you accept some of the practice, even if it's just to go into a kirtan and you're attracted by the beat and you sing along a little bit, then Krishna from within the heart is changing, and you realize that the point, you know, is that you experience something, and that really nourishes your faith. You know, just to read it on a page is one thing, but if you actually go into a kirtan and you hear the holy name and you see, then it becomes visceral. Yes, there's really something here. This is how Prabhupada grew the movement. He didn't have the books. You know, he had his 3 hardback books that he brought with him, but they ran out after a while. And it wasn't even the Bhagavad Gita. He had the easy journey, but it was just him. He was giving the teach. And the kirtan. The program would be the kirtan, the talk, another kirtan, and prasadam. You know, more or less like Taco Tuesdays. A lot of it's important. So then, you know, they're getting the experience of the prasadam, which is also changing him. You know, especially when Prabhupada would cook himself. You can imagine how effective that was. But the chanting, Krishna from within the heart, he gives you some little taste, realization, and he makes you more interested in understanding what is this all about, you see. So that's how it works. But from the first beginning, there's all kinds of doubts. Arjuna asked Krishna, please slay these doubts, O Madhusudan, you know, because Arjuna was doubtful about the whole propriety of the war, you see. So Arjuna is put into this situation. He's an eternal associate of Krishna. But Krishna covered him so that we could identify with Arjuna and then undergo a similar transformation and surrender, you know, from the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, we have another question here.
Which verse in Bhagavad Gita is close to Lord Chaitanya's philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bhed?
I'd have to think it over. Please forgive me. Anyway, I can't think of it. That's an interesting question, and I'll try to remember that for the next session, which will be tomorrow. Okay, so let's go on. Because we really get to a very interesting section here where Arjuna asks Krishna to describe in detail his mystic power. And anyway, it's a very interesting turn of events, because after all of this, and Arjuna says, I accept everything you say. All right, then let's go have the battle. What do we need the last 8 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita for? But there's a reason for them, and it comes out. Okay, text 15. Svayamevatmanatmanam vettatvam purushottama bhuta bhavana bhutesha Deva Deva Jagatpate. Indeed, you alone know yourself by your own internal potency, O Supreme Person, origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of gods, Lord of the universe. So he said, so in the previous verse he said, oh, neither the demigods nor the demons can understand you. So he's saying, oh, you alone can know yourself. Purport. The Supreme Lord, Krishna, can be known by persons who are in a relationship with him through the discharge of devotional service, like Arjuna and his followers. Persons of demonic or atheistic mentality cannot know Krishna. Mental speculation that leads one away from the Supreme Lord is a serious sin, and one who does not know Krishna should not try to comment on the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is the statement of Krishna, and since it is the science of Krishna, it should be understood from Krishna as Arjuna understood it. It should not be received from atheistic persons. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1-11, Padanti tat tat vividas tattvanya jnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. The Supreme Truth is realized in three aspects, as impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and at last as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So at the last stage of understanding the Absolute Truth, one comes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A common man or even a liberated man who has realized impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma may not understand God's personality. Such men, therefore, may endeavor to understand the Supreme Person from the verses of the Bhagavad Gita, which are being spoken by this person, Krishna. Sometimes the impersonalists accept Krishna as Bhagavan, or they accept his authority. Yet many liberated persons cannot understand Krishna as Purushottama, the Supreme Person. Therefore, Arjuna addresses him as Purushottama. Yet one still may not understand that Krishna is the father of all living entities. Therefore, Arjuna addresses him as Bhuta Bhavana. And if one comes to know him as the father of all living entities, still one may not know him as the supreme controller. Therefore, he is addressed here as Bhutesha, the supreme controller of everyone. So Bhuta is creatures, and Isha means the Lord, the supreme controller of everyone. And even if one knows Krishna as the supreme controller of all living entities, still one may not know that he is the origin of all the demigods. Therefore, he is addressed herein as Deva Deva, the worshipful God of all demigods. And even if one knows him as the worshipful God of all demigods, one may not know that he is the supreme proprietor of everything. Therefore, he is addressed as Jagatpati. Thus, the truth about Krishna is established in this verse by the realization of Arjuna, and we should follow in the footsteps of Arjuna to understand Krishna as he is. So this, you can see how much food for thought is there, just in this one verse. You know, there's a verse in the 5th chapter at the end of the fifth chapter called, and Prabhupada dubbed it the peace formula, because the last line talks about how if you know this about, then you'll be peaceful. So it's Bhoktaram Yagyatapasang Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantim Richati. So we all want peace. We want peace in our own lives, and we want peace in the world like that. But how to get peace? So here he says, Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam. Of all sacrifices and all austerities, I am the ultimate enjoyer. If you try to enjoy the fruits of your own sacrifice, you know, and austerity, which everyone is doing, I'm the one who worked so hard to get this job and this degree. Now I'm going to save the money and invest the stocks, and I'm going to enjoy the fruits, you see. But that's unnatural, because we're part and parcel of Krishna. We are by nature servants. Prabhupada would always give the example of the body. Here's this hand, right? Now, we don't think twice about it. We tell a hand that somebody said, I want to pick something up. And the message goes out, right, the nerves or anything, and say, oh, okay, pick up the water. And if I want the water and the hand just lies limp there, I say, what's with you? Right? Something wrong with the hand. It's paralyzed. So we are, by nature, part of Krishna's body. We're meant to use our facilities in the service to him. There's a beautiful little phrase I'll give you. It's getting late. It encapsulates the whole essence of Bhakti Yoga. It's in the Sandarbhas. I'm not sure which one yet, and it's quoted in a purport in the second canto. If you're interested in the reference, I'll give it to you. And he says like this. It says, Bhajaniya Padama Purusha Sukha Matra Swasukatvam. So every word is important. Bhajaniya means worshipable. Bhajaniya Padama Purusha, the supreme person who is worshipable. That's Kṛṣṇa. Bhajaniya Padama Purusha Sukha Matra. Only the happiness of that supreme person. Swasukatvam should be the source of one's own happiness. In other words, we want to take our pleasure in giving Krishna pleasure. Now, how do we know what gives Krishna pleasure? We consult the Shastra, we consult the great devotees like Srila Prabhupada. He made it very clear, you just chant this holy name, you see? This will be pleasing to Krishna and you will find yourself pleased, and it works. If you actually do it and you pay attention and you're focusing on the name, there's a tremendous pleasure in there. And Lord Chaitanya showed how that can be practically, the sky's the limit. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself. It's Krishna coming as a devotee of Krishna to teach us how to perform devotional service and to experience the highest bliss of devotional service himself. He's Krishna himself in the mood and complexion of Srimati Radharani, his prime servant. And she's love personified, Ladini Shakti. Ladini means spiritual pleasure. So that love for Krishna and expressing it in all different ways is the essence of bhakti, and one finds oneself in a state of happiness and bliss that can't even be imagined. And the wonderful thing is, it's not dependent on the strength of your senses or your age or anything. Srila Prabhupada he came to America, he was 69, 70. But he was always in this state of peace and happiness, but great enthusiasm for spreading Krishna's message. Because he was given that mission by his spiritual master, and because Krishna showers his mercy most on those who spread his message. And so everyone can do it. Get a handful of books, and we've got the pure message, the pure devotee is there in the form of his words, and you can spread them. Like Mirabai, you're doing Uber now? Yeah. But she's doing Uber. But it's Uber. It's like, she sent me a wonderful account of one of her customers, who she gave a book, who was very excited, and get beads. Yeah, even in Uber. Why not? So that there's a pleasure in that. Vijay was here. He's like a legendary figure. I knew him back in 80. I met him in 83 when I went to Miami. He'd already been a devotee about 5 years. And from day one, practically, he was distributing books, and he's still distributing books all the time. He was the international minister for book distribution for many years, but now he's given that over to Vaisheshika Prabhu. He wrote a wonderful book called The Nectar of the Brihat Madanga. Brihat Madanga means the big Madanga. This is the book distribution. So many incredible stories of devotees preaching adventures. So why is that? Why are they impelled to do that? Well, a matter of duty, but also because it's very fulfilling. Because you're connecting souls to Krishna and giving them the opportunity to revive their original relation with Krishna. It's just like, because think of it this way, we're all children of God. Krishna claims that in the 14th chapter. Sarva yonisha kuntiya murtiyak sambhavantiya tasam brahma mahanya aham bija pratakpita. I am the seed-giving father for every living being. So all the living beings are our brothers and sisters, especially human beings. Especially human beings whom we can also help to get back closer to their father, to the family, you see. So when you think of it that way, then Krishna is so pleased when another wayward son or daughter, is brought closer back and is directed to come back to him. You can see how, and he says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, what is it? Oh, I should know this verse. But he says, there is no one more dear to me than those who spread this message, who help to, give it out. So, let's see. Okay, we did read this. So Krishna appears, he has different forms. Deva Jagatpate, Bhuta Bhavana, he's the source of all. And so his greatness is unquestioned. But what's really also very important for us is that he relishes a personal relationship with every one of us. He's God, he's infinite. He can be a friend to us, or he can be a master, Or even, we learn every Kartik, he could also be a child. You can have that mood. It's just so endearing. Krishna hides all of his majesty so that he can have this intimate relationship with his mother, Yashoda. There she is, she's binding him, and he's saying, I didn't do anything. Pradyumna Prabhu, who lived here for many years, he pointed out, there's a little mistake in that phrase. There's no grinding mortar that she's binding him to. She's just binding him. Anyway, it's a minor thing. All right, so we'll pick up with text 16 tomorrow, but I want to leave a few minutes here for a couple of poems. Some maybe you haven't heard for a while. This one I don't think you ever heard. Yamalajana bandana mashata bandana. This is just to show you how wonderful this language is. Rupa Goswami. Yamalajana bandana mashata dandana mahiganjana ganalasa badam. Pasupala padandana mabasata kandana matisundana manavinda kadam. Vadagopa vadujana vidachata pujana mulukujana namavenu smadanama vichakshana makalabhalakshana tanalakshana matidakshatatam. You broke the two Yamalajun trees. You loved to delight your pure devotees. You crushed the pride of the Kali snake with your prancing dance in the Yamuna lake. You're the coward's prince and the life and soul. To serve you with love is their only goal. In the caves you meet the gopis fair and enjoy sweet loving pastimes there. You're dashing, clever, and most debonair. Your lotus hands give blessings rare. To worship you again and again is the way of the wise of the cowherd men. When the gopis hear the flute you hold, their passion grows 1,000-fold. Of amorous joking you're the king. Indeed, you're skilled at everything. And then it goes on for 4 more verses like that. It's called the Tri Bhangi Chanda Stava by Rupa Goswami. Wonderful meditation on Krishna. That's the great thing about this Sanskrit language and the great poetry that's been written by our forebears, by our acharyas, is that they provide wonderful ways of remembering Krishna. Like the Brahma Samhita. Lord Chaitanya found that book in South India and he brought it back and he made it current with all of it. And yesterday, there's 2 verses at the end of the Samhita that describe the spiritual world. But I chanted those last night, so I'm not going to chant them tonight. But I'll chant some of the other verses. The Chintamani prayers. One of my favorites is the second one. Venam kwananda madavinda lalaya taksham barhavatang samasitam buddha sundarangam kandapakoti kamaniya vishesha shobham govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So, I didn't put that into a poem, but I'll just tell you what it means. So, Venam Kwanantam, he's blowing the flute very, very beautifully, creating a very attractive sound, all attractive. Adavinda Dalaya Taksham, he has these eyes that are just like the petals of freshly grown lotus. Adavinda Barhavatanksam, he has an ornament constructed out of peacock feathers. Sometimes he just has a single feather, but he has more. Barhavatanksam Asitam Buddha Sundarangam. Very beautiful limbs, color of a fresh cloud in the sky. Asita, a little dark. Asitam Ambuddha. Ambuddha, that which gives the water. Ambuddha is a cloud. Sundarang. Kandar Pakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham. He is more attractive than millions of cupids. And his name is Govinda because he pleases the senses and the cows. And he's the Adi Purusha. He's the original person. It is he whom I worship. Tamaham bhajami. So these books are available. I have a recording of this Govinda, the Brahma Samhita. Actually, the Govinda prayers within the Brahma Samhita. And you're all welcome to it. Just write to me, Dravida108@gmail, and I'll send you the recordings and also these poems that I wrote. We're giving them out free. So, but you have to remember, Dravida108@gmail. I don't have a website, sorry. All right, we'll adjourn now and we'll assemble for the wonderful kirtan and the last arati. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Govindam. And we will start from text 16. Yeah.